Okay, so please enter our screen with your full name. And if you want to ask a question, raise hand using the Zoom function. You will be unmuted and you'll be able to speak them. When speaking, switch on the videos, state your name and affiliation, and do not share links to the Zoom meetings not even with your colleagues. So, having said that, I'm happy to give floor to our moderator for the session.
Thank you so much. Well, first, we're going to have a welcome from the UN IGF Secretariat. Oh, you can't hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Just speak louder, like, okay.
Just
I'm going to leave out my whole voice here today. Okay, so first, I think we have a welcome from the UN IGF Secretariat, whom I invite to come and share with us.
Okay.
If you want to stand up.
If it's all right with you, it would be better if you join here, but we need to.
Okay.
You can give the keynote from here. Yeah.
You know, we had the case. Somebody used that as a chair, and it went really well. So.
Oh, okay, okay, I can do that too. That's fine. My glasses out. Okay, thank you. And greetings, everybody. My name is Chingatai Masango, and I am head of the IGF Secretariat based in Geneva. Some of you may know Anya Gengo. She works with me. Okay, so I've got a speech for you, and I'll read it out. Okay. It is a pleasure to officially launch the IGF 2024 Youth Track here in beautiful Vilnius. So it was raining yesterday, but that's fine. With stakeholders joining us from around the world on site and online. I would like to thank EuroDIG and its EuroDIG for hosting us. It's been nearly 2 decades have passed since Kofi Annan, the UN Secretary General, convened the IGF back in 2006. And I don't think anybody here was there, right? But I was. In these dynamic times, when changes are on the horizon, it is good to remind ourselves about the historic journey the IGF community went through, from consistent work, which resulted in introducing the multi-stakeholder model under the auspices of a traditionally multilateral intergovernmental mechanism, to implementation of key IGF principles and values at the local, regional, and global levels. The changes I've mentioned relate to the upcoming Global Digital Compact and the 20-year review of the World Summit on the Information Society. And these are both great opportunities for this community, including the youth, specifically the youth as well, to upgrade its already excellent work and help ensure the world has accessible, affordable, safe, and secure human rights respecting resilient internet and its good governance. The journey of hard work and changes continues. This calls for continuous investment in the next generation of experts and leaders by the current generation. At the level of the IGF, this has been recognized a long time ago through a dedicated youth track. Cooperation is developed across silos through the cooperation of youth IGF initiatives existing around the world and the various international youth-focused initiatives. The IGF Secretariat is proud to be able to work with these leaders and ensure that the track has a firm structure and rich, globally relevant input coming from communities from all corners of the world. This year, the IGF Youth Track is focusing on governance of artificial intelligence under the motto, empowering youth leaders for trusted AI. 4 capacity development workshops are to be hosted in conjunction with the regional IGFs, all leading to the IGF 2024 Global Youth Summit, hosted in Riyadh on the 15th of December. From exploring AI-generated deepfakes here at EuroDIG, we are continuing our journey towards discussing the use of large language modules in schools at the Asia-Pacific Youth IGF, and to looking at human rights implications during the Latin American and Caribbean IGF. To ways of building a strong ecosystem for good AI governance at the African IGF. Working with and for youth is working for a better tomorrow. I am pleased to confirm that the youth track fosters a dialogue between young people and those at more senior experts. The workshop today is no exception, and I look forward to learning from all of you about the issues and opportunities that AI brings to us. Thank you very much, and I wish you good deliberation.
Thank you so much, Shanagai, for your keynote. And now I'll be welcoming all of you to this roundtable discussion on AI threats and new strategies to detect AI-generated political deepfakes, organized by the IGF Youth Track. I'm Pilar, I'm going to be the moderator for today, and I'm also EuroDIG organizer. Here, we will discuss one of the most pressing issues at the intersection of technology and security. As AI continues to advance at an unprecedented pace, we must be prepared to combat this misuse, particularly in the realm of political misinformation. Deepfakes, hyper-realistic videos and audio recordings generated by AI, have emerged as a powerful tool for deception. These sophisticated forgeries can manipulate public opinion, disrupt elections, and undermine trust in our institutions. The ability to create convincing deepfakes is no longer confined to well-funded organizations. It's becoming increasingly accessible, raising the stakes for detection and prevention. In our panel today, we will explore the latest strategies and technologies being developed to identify and mitigate these AI-related risks. To this end, we have a group of experts on this matter who are at the forefront for combating this digital menace. And without further ado, let's begin our conversation by welcoming our distinguished panelists. So online, I hope yes, I can see her online. We have Mary, Senior Case and Policy Officer at Meta Oversight Board. To my left, we have Thomas. He's a EuroDIG 2024 Fellow and UN Student Association of Norway. Next, Emily from the Council of Europe Advisory Group on Youth member and EuroDIG 2024 member as well. And finally, we have Everton, an expert advisor to the board of CGI.com.br from Brazil. So, Mary, we will start with you. Yes, I see you. Okay, so with 2024 being a pivotal election year, what strategies have you implemented or would you recommend to be introduced to safeguard the integrity of elections against the threats posed by deepfakes?
Thank you, Pilar. Can you hear me? Just to confirm.
Yes, we can hear you well.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. So as Pilar mentioned, I work at Meta's Oversight Board, and for those that do not know about the board, I will just give a brief overview. So the board is an independent body, so it is not part of Meta, and it is a body of 22 experts from around the world. And it was created to answer some of the most difficult questions around free expression, human rights, and content moderation globally. The board applies international human rights standards to binding decisions that are in response to the appeals from Facebook, Threads, and Instagram users from around the globe. The board also issues non-binding recommendations that are aimed to address more systemic content moderation issues on Meta's platform. Pilar started with a very big question. And I will give a brief overview, but happy to go into more detail as the discussion goes. So the protection of elections and civic space is one of the 7 strategic priorities for the board. And earlier in May, the board published its piece on the key lessons learned around elections in this unprecedented year of elections around the world. And that to defend the civic.
Mary, you're breaking up a little bit. Is your connection stable?
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, now we can hear you better. Thank you.
So I was saying that earlier the board published key lessons learned from its case law around elections. And one of the main messages is that the platforms need to do everything to defend open civic space, which means that it should provide space for members of political opposition, human rights defenders, and marginalized voices to express their opinion and participate in democratic processes. Other main messages from this paper include the fact that companies must set global platform standards for elections everywhere. They should not let political speech that incites violence go unchecked. In terms of deepfakes, the board acknowledges that lies have been part of political campaigns always. However, with the development of technologies, this has become more problematic, not only in terms of deepfakes and other AI-generated or manipulated content, but also in terms of deepfakes. And the most relevant case to our discussion is the decision around the altered video of President Biden, in which the board reviewed a video that had been altered to make it appear as though the US president was inappropriately touching his granddaughter's chest. The board emphasized that the mere falsehood cannot be the sole basis of restricting freedom of expression under human rights law, and outlined a number of gaps and inconsistencies with Meta's manipulated media policy. So eventually the board decided that this content should stay on the platform because it didn't violate the policy as it was enforced at the time. However, it recommended a number of measures for Meta to review and improve its manipulated media policy. One of those was that the policy at the time was only concerning AI modified content, but it was not, for instance, talking about any other ways of manipulated content. It also was treating audio and audiovisual media differently. Also, there was difference between what the people were doing that was altered and what they were saying. But you know, around the world, a lot of times audio-based deepfakes are also quite influential and have adverse consequences. The main recommendation from this case was around urging Meta to label its content that is AI generated or manipulated instead of relying on fact checkers, because this has there are several differences. First of all, the board noted that labeling is not as is more scalable than relying on third-party fact checkers, because this fact-checking process works differently depending on language and market or where the specific content comes from. At the same time, when a piece of content is fact-checked and then a specific fact-checking label is applied to it, it gets demoted, which means the content ranking in the recommender system gets downranked. And this actually has a problem in terms of the spread of this kind of content, and the board in general is very concerned about negative impacts of demotion on freedom of expression. Meta, in fact, committed to implementing this recommendation to start labeling manipulated content instead of defaulting to removal. And since May 24, Meta already started labeling organic AI-generated content. And in addition to labeling, the board believes that Meta should give researchers access to data to verify this process and also assess the impact of platforms' automated decisions and content curation. And thanks to the board's efforts, Meta's content library, their third-party researcher tool, is open to third-party researchers around the world at the moment. In other cases, the board is currently also looking at a case bundle that involves AI-generated nude images of female public figures from India and US, but I will stop here and can discuss more as the discussion goes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mary. And now, Emily. We witness deepfakes influence and interference with political discourse and voter perception in recent years. Given the rapid advancements in deepfake technology and its increasing accessibility, what are the most pressing challenges we face in regulating and mitigating the misuse of this technology in the political arena?
Thank you for the question, Pilar. Can everyone hear my voice? I'm trying to speak out loud. Perfect. I'm Emily Khachaturian, coming from the Council of Europe of the Advisory Council on Youth, and I would like to explain to you first what the structure is, how we function, in order to understand how young people can help with the regulations and with the recommendations to deal with deepfakes and other AI concerning issues that we face. So Advisory Council on Youth works next to the Committee of Ministers, and we sit down on a joint council and discuss political issues that are violating human rights, democracy, and rule of law. And I'm representing the portfolio on digitalization and young people and artificial intelligence. And this issue is the issue of deepfakes is a concerning issue because it is important to implement regulations targeting deepfakes and synthetic media. And I really like the idea that Meta has started implementing labeling, because that is something that I actually wanted to propose. It is an idea that China has been implementing since 2019, according to their Cyberspace Administration of China, and they took a step to issue this regulation and make it mandatory for all the social media platforms. So I believe this could be crucial for European Union as well. We could implement and adapt this regulation to our needs and regulate all social media, not only Meta, in order to label all the contents, because labeling will help people to be more sure whether it's correct or not. And I'm also a data science student, so coming from a technical background, this is not hard to implement. It is an AI model that can be easily created through training and testing. And as more deepfake data is being created right now, these AI models can be trained and used very easily. So it can be done in less than a month. And how young people can actually get involved in this would be having more focus groups and having more young people actually interacting with deepfakes, as we're the generation who are using the technologies as much. It's easier for us. I noticed that it's easier for us to understand which one is a deep fake, which one is not. And maybe if there was a website, a tool where young people could choose which one is a real authentic content and which one is AI generated content, this could give Meta and other technical companies to develop these AI tools even easier. And the companies, due to the regulation, the companies that do not have this detector tool should be fined in a way, because this is exactly like copyright issues. This is exactly like violent content, and it should be treated the same way. And a solution should be implemented for this, because this is also due to algorithms. And if algorithms can be modified and actually take into consideration this deepfake content, so many people will be less manipulated and could enter social media with more safety nets, because we always enter social media and we never know what to trust or what not to trust, which is a big issue in our society now. And yes, and why young people would be a good help to engage with these fast-moving technologies? It's because it is our future. We are currently building our future together, and with EuroDIG, with EuroDIG. It's great that this co-management system is being developed, and it should be done not only on international levels, but also on national levels in different countries, because young people can help policymakers to think of these regulations even better. And we will present our EuroDIG messages in these couple of days. I hope you are also excited for it, because there are many solutions we came up with. Yes, also, as I am mentioning that young people can help with this regulation, I also find that it's very important to implement a curriculum, an educational curriculum in their system, in their middle school educational system, because we have the informatics class. But what does it entail? It has Excel classes, Microsoft Office classes. But now, as AI is becoming a tool, especially ChatGPT, it is important to teach young people how to use this properly in order to improve our work and become more productive, instead of just losing our critical thinking due to these AI technologies. So I would urge all considering to implement this AI literacy in educational courses and curriculums in many countries, because afterwards, these young people are going to spread the message between an older generation. Young people can raise awareness and also teach elder people of how to use this, how to understand it better, because AI is viewed as bad thing in our world, as something that is going, for example, robots in the future are going to take us over. But in good hands, it can be used for social impact, and with a strong background knowledge of it, it can be done very well and eliminate manipulation on social media and other platforms. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, you diggers, for supporting your email. And yeah, I'm talking, like, you introduced the EuroDIG messages, and I think that's great. And I encourage everyone here to come and listen to them, because they're designed by the young people to give you, like, senior stakeholders, the chance to listen to their messages. And I'm so glad that Mary and Meta is implementing the labels that you recommended.
Yes.
So, Everton, in light of the growing prevalence of political deepfakes, what measures can be taken to rebuild and maintain trust in democratic processes?
How many hours do we have to answer that question?
5 minutes.
Because that's, I would love to make a very comprehensive answer to that, but because it's a very complex scenario. But, well, I would like, anyway, just to thank you for the invitation, and thanks to all of you here and remotely following this debate. I'm from nick.br. Here I'll be speaking on behalf of the Brazilian IGF. The impact of deepfake largely depends on the informational environment it finds. So that environment is composed by many pieces, we all know that. In a very healthy environment with diverse sources, robust journalism, and careful fact-checking, deepfakes can quickly be proven fake. So that's the easy part, whether they come in video, audio, or both, because we have both in development. So rebuilding trust, in my opinion, starts with fostering a robust information environment. As my background is in communications, I firmly believe that the best way to combat misinformation begins with trustworthy information, and journalism alone won't solve every problem, but collaborating with media professionals is essential to provide a wider audience with reliable information. And this information exists on the internet despite of many challenges, ranging from technology to finances or to financing the journalism everywhere. So this depends on an information environment which is solid and healthy, that has good journalists working, being well paid with Republican criteria, and seeking impartiality. Although the truth is mostly an intention than an end in itself, deepfakes will prevail when reliable information is living in the shadows of the internet. So it's not about being by default against media outlets that are more biased or that have their political positions of speech and so on. But it's about considering more strongly those who seek this sort of consensual truth, so to say, that are closer to this relationship with the reality itself. All of them have their places, both those more biased and those who are more, so to say, neutral. They have their places in our societies, and they deserve to live independently from major digital platforms, which is a reality more over and over more distant in the present times. And disregarding this discussion and letting the spreading of misinformation go on is a dead end for digital platforms, for their users, which may be personally affected by deepfakes, for the trust on the internet, and for societies as a whole. So this is not a small topic that we are talking here. To compose the discussion in this issue, last year, CGI.br, the Brazilian Multi-Stakeholder Steering Committee, we have here a board member from CGI.br with us. CGI.br published a study suggesting the idea, one of the ideas, is to suggest a public fund financed by major internet platforms as one of the possible ways. We have a lot of ways ahead, but one of them would be the idea of this public fund to improve the Brazilian informational environment. And while this is not the only suggestion on the table today, CGI.br is sure that this debate should be accepted as legitimate in the sense that regulations deserves to be at least discussed by policymakers from all branches, the lawmakers, the executive branch, and the judiciary as well. So let's not forget the role that each stakeholder has into feeding and organizing those discussions, including the very well articulated youth groups. And because after all, do deepfakes affect young people in a political environment? Yes, they do. Are deepfakes becoming more simpler as time goes by, or are they becoming more complex, right? So these challenges gives us an opportunity to organize and promote engagement to tackle those issues. Another important topic that I would like to highlight is to track those who finance the creation and spreading of deepfakes. This requires agile coordination and implementation of efforts with law enforcement agencies and other authorities. And additionally, it's very important to recognize that the origin and development of deepfakes depend on the development of artificial intelligence mechanisms, whose bodies require permanent improvements, and otherwise we will be only discussing and debating the effects of deepfakes instead of looking to the origins of deepfakes themselves. Coming to the end of my intervention, our social connections, they allow us to achieve great results from consensus-based multi-stakeholder debates, which consider the scenarios and challenges in different regions. So in that sense, it's necessary that each region convene those discussions to address their challenges regarding deepfakes. For example, using the NRI structure for that, but not only the NRI structure. When governments, tech companies, and for example, citizens work together, we can create an environment that tackles unhealthy content, which compromises our informational environment. And these collective constructions include providing social and technological skills that combat deepfakes inside and out of social media channels. Those tools should consider carefully the different languages, for example, that are spoken in a major territory, that are spoken in a territory. Sometimes we can only easily recognize using our tools deepfakes which are created in one language but not in another one when it comes to audio deepfakes. If a targeted group is constantly being harassed, for example, and many other important issues. So the greater the size of a player in this environment, the greater the responsibility it has. So, and our roles as citizens and conveners of debates is not small as well. So to sum up, protecting trust in our democracy when there are lots of deepfakes means using many different ways. So there's space for everyone. I could stay here talking for hours, but that's it for the moment. Thank you very much, Pilar.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, because it's true that the rise in deepfakes, like Mary mentioned, audio deepfakes, video deepfakes, picture deepfakes, is just, for us, it's becoming very hard to detect them. So, Thomas, how can we empower youth to combat the rise of disinformation fueled by deepfake technology?
Thank you for that question. So yeah, my name is Thomas Orheim. I'm from Norway, and I have my background in an organization called the UN Student Association. I think that question it's a very good question. I think it's also followed up with what initiatives have shown promise in this area. And I think, empowering youth is something that has shown promise when it comes to this area. So these questions are a little bit interrelated. But I also think the first question we have to then ask is, who is going to empower youth? Are we talking about teachers, decision makers, parents, other youth? And of course, the answer is, at least in my opinion, that it's not just one group that we're talking about to empower youth. It has to come from a united force, if you will. And why is this important? Because I think more and more we talk about, or for example, we've talked a little bit already today about, we're being called digital natives, the youth. And I'm not sure entirely whether or not that is a very useful or at least helpful term to use, because if anything, it just creates a little bit of a further division between this generation and the previous generation, while in reality, we're probably better off trying to stay on the same page. And rather, a great way to empower youth is for these other groups to be a safe and trusted place for them to rely on to come with their sources. So what do I mean with this? For example, picture you have a scenario of a student or a child that comes to you and shows you something on the phone that they saw on, let's say TikTok or Instagram, and the teacher or parent, they just kind of dismiss it and say, you shouldn't be on Instagram and TikTok and get your information from these sources. You should, read the real news. Now, I think my point is that is not a very useful way of answering. And why is that? Well, the reality is that these platforms, they're here to stay, and youth are on them, and they will form their attitudes, and they will get their news from these sources, whether or not you like it. So rather than dismissing it, I think it's important that the recipient group has the necessary tools to feel confident answering in an empowering way. And that it can be a way of, bridging this generational gap. So I know, for example, if we're talking about some initiatives that have shown promise, in my home country of Norway, they have been developing something called the conversation cards, which essentially can be between a parent and a child that you have around the kitchen table, or it can be in a classroom with a teacher talking to their students about where they get their information and what they can do if they're uncertain of what the intention, say, behind this information could be. And essentially, this provides these educators, like parents or teachers, with the right questions to in a constructive way, lead the conversation with youth. And I mean, that's one aspect of it, but then I also want to stress that youth also has a responsibility to other youth when it comes to this. So that means that's us checking our own attitudes and how we treat, if your friend says something or sends something in a group chat that you're not entirely certain about, bother enough to take that conversation and ask them, okay, where did you get this from? Is this just something you saw on, TikTok? Could this be, presented in a way that has a certain narrative behind it? And actually asking these questions is what's going to be, I think at least, a really important tool of combating misinformation and disinformation, especially with like deepfakes and something that can seem very convincing. So essentially, to sum up, all generations have to be a part of the solution, and it's so important that we know how to have the conversation, like we know how to do the proper, like ask the right questions and then follow up on them, and have the confidence to do so. Because even though we are, we're talking about cutting edge technology that is in rapid development, I think that doesn't necessarily mean we need to have a cutting edge answer. Sometimes we can also use non-tech answers to, talk about, things we don't even know entirely how it came about, like deepfakes. Most people probably won't know the technical stuff behind it, but you can still talk about it in a non-technical manner. So the answer doesn't necessarily have to be something drastically new. And I think my key point is that it's important to keep a little bit of the human touch in all of this, and just know how to talk to each other about these kind of topics.
Thank you so much. I think now we'll start with a more discussion process, and I'm going to refer to Mary. Because Thomas, you referred to social media platforms in your intervention, and Mary, like Thomas mentioned, how are you implementing the tools to make the people feel confident in your platform?
Thank you so much, and thanks to my fellow speakers for very interesting interventions. So to start, I'll start by clarifying that the board is not Meta, so I'm not speaking on behalf of Meta here. Overall, as I was saying, based on the board's case law and overall position, I think there are several things that should work together to achieve user trust, which is the ultimate goal in this time of our development. And I think we need to look at this more depending on which situations we are taking into account. So I think this session mostly tried to focus on more generally on deepfakes, and AI generated manipulated content, but also more specifically in the context of elections, which in my opinion, this type of manipulated content poses more specific risks. And I think there should be combination of several factors. So one is, as mentioned, some technological solutions. As Emily was saying, AI is not an inherently bad thing. There are a lot of benefits to using AI technology, but maybe using things as labeling can be very helpful for users to understand what is human created so-called content and what is AI generated. And you could already see that implemented on Meta's platform. The second thing, in my opinion, is, as has been mentioned several times, the need to continue with more user empowerment and overall digital literacy development. This is also something that the board has been pushing for in its decisions, starting from providing more notifications to users when a post that they made was in violation of the community standards. In the first year of the board's existence, it already had cases where the board called on Meta to provide more reasoning to the content takedown decisions and provide the users with the opportunity to explain trying to say in their post, which in case of, for instance, satire or humor is quite difficult to understand for moderators or for AI systems for content moderation. So I think overall, beyond platforms, we need to invest more in digital literacy. As far as I remember myself in this space, this has been a theme, and I think technologies come and go, new ones emerge, but the need for digital literacy stays the same. And the skills, in my opinion, that are useful for everyone, regardless of age and profession, are actually quite transferable to new type of technologies. And the third factor, in my opinion, is the cooperation across different stakeholders. a lot of groups are thinking about similar issues, not only from technological perspective, but generally understanding the impact and origin of different technologies around the world. The impacts are also different in different regions. And I believe cooperation and multi-stakeholder cooperation is the third factor that is very much needed, especially now with the much faster development of technologies. So I don't have one solution to answer your question, but I think several things need to work together to make this happen. And definitely platforms like this, and especially having youth voices, is very crucial in this process. Thank you.
So Emily, just by reference, I'm going to give the floor.
Yes, I would like actually to ask a question to Mary, because I'm very curious whether it is a possibility to implement into the algorithms prioritizing educational content on AI literacy, because you mentioned the point that it's digital literacy, AI literacy is very important. And I was curious whether Meta has the possibility and the opportunity to give this small introduction to the algorithm in order to prioritize this kind of content, because if it is being shown to more people, then we can actually raise awareness. And young people from the other side, as we are going to educate them, we can give them an opportunity to create this kind of content. And if this content is created and Meta is pushing it and promoting it, it would be a great cooperation between young people and also private sector.
So Mary, would you take the question?
Sure, that's a great question, Emily. Thank you for that. Again, not speaking on behalf of Meta, but based on what we know, I think given the sheer amount of content on the platform, it may not be that easy to understand which one is the educational content on the platform to recommend more or less. I think what may be helpful in addition to labeling is just to potentially provide more prompts to users. I think, for instance, that Twitter was doing a lot around mis and disinformation when people were sharing posts without reading them. So the prompt when you are trying to forward a message, I think Facebook was doing the same, Meta was doing the same on WhatsApp when people were doing COVID, were just forwarding messages to bigger groups and just spreading information without verifying. And they basically restricted this functionality to a certain number of groups. And then the prompts were in development. So I think this kind of prompts that will also include more of this, take another look, think about this a bit more, like stop and think and then act kind of messaging will be helpful. And the board is definitely pushing for this, not only for AI generated content, but more generally, because this is an issue regardless of whether the content is manipulated or it's just a more simple disinformation piece. So if you have other ideas, the board usually in all cases has the calls for public comments, and we would love to hear more ideas and your thoughts or expertise on specific things that you think may make sense. And then the board is happy to take it into consideration and try to push, because this is also a direction we are trying to make an impact on.
Amazing, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary. And Everton, I would like to refer to you, because we label things, we try to improve trust, but how can you collectively enhance the public's ability to distinguish between fact and fake?
Well, the final answer, I think it's still to be discussed but I think that a good start is by promoting more debates, collective debates, and to share ideas on how to build those, the future that we want ahead. So in the case of the Brazilian IGF, the Brazilian Internet Steering Committee organizes the events, and then we have this call for proposals. Many of those proposals debate deepfakes and misinformation and other aspects, and this is one good way forward for sure. So I'm quite sure that by collectively discussing and promoting those debates, not only from our perspectives, but also allowing other voices, this is a good way forward.
So Thomas, would you like to add?
Well, I mean, I think I agree with everything that was just said. I think something that I also wanted to bring attention to that hasn't been discussed yet, which I can ask if my fellow panelists agree with me or not. But there is also, a certain responsibility about or on how we talk about these type of things like disinformation, misinformation, especially with deepfakes, that can seem like it's very, very scary and that the world's kind of like coming to an end because we can't trust anything online anymore. And then because we've also talked quite a bit about this back home as well, if the people that use, so let's say social media are very, scared and become quite like frustrated, or essentially if you're scared of something, you become less critical of, or your ability to think critically also diminishes, right? So there's also a responsibility for, this may be more like journalists, but also social media about how they talk about these types of issues and how they might perceive the audience to perceive it.
And also because we tend to, of course, that all the young people here may not know, but there was a time in which there was no interact like this. And but jokes aside, real conversations in real spaces need to take place. Sometimes we tend to think or to only convene meetings and discussions online, and to think of the effects of deepfakes and fake news or misinformation in a very restricted space of social medias, but they also affect people by gossips and other analog situations. So of course that deepfakes are not necessarily analog, they are a digital artifact, but still, so these conversations need to take place. As you were mentioning, one very interesting topic, which is to talk to your peers and talk to your friends, because sometimes they are sources of the transmission of deepfake content. But not only that, sometimes they may be by accident generating that misinformation, or even generating misinformation, and this to talk to each other, to know the opinions of your friends, to stay in contact with them in the real world, is one of the ways that we have on hand as well to identify if that content is true, truth or a lie.
Yeah, Emily, so
Yes, I'd like to add, I agree with both of my fellow panelists. And the thing is that the digital world is becoming bigger and bigger, but it can never change and take the place of human interaction. Because by the end of the day, all of us have been living the life since childhood. AI was not there, I don't know, social media was not there, but it will never fully replace it. Because, for example, ChatGPT can never replace my teacher, because this human interaction, emotions, and all this attachment are more important, and all the experience that we lived through are more important than any tool can be. I can use ChatGPT as a calculator in order to do my coding, or to help me understand my course or content, but it will never replace my teacher or my friends. It can never do that. But it's important to embrace these tools and remember how to, and learn how to productively use them, because you can use it and lose your critical thinking, but you can use it and become 100 times more productive and finish your work instead of 3 hours in 10 minutes, which is great. We are evolving and we are getting into the innovation. So instead of just being scared, we should embrace it, and as well try to not have this gap between the generations, because that's also very important. Thank you.
Yeah, I think Emily put that very well. And I think, like you're saying, we're probably going to have to learn a few new things and probably how to use it in the most optimal manner. But then maybe on the other side of that, we also have to make sure that we don't get so much ahead of us that we kind of forget what it was like before. we don't want to become too reliable on these types of tools so that we forget what it's like to have, a real conversation, or what it's like to be in a real classroom. So maybe we then have to change a little bit our focus to, have a little bit more discussions about how to do things the good old fashioned way, and also appreciate that not everything, just because it's new, is necessarily that much better.
So I'm going to give the floor to someone in the room now.
Just to make sure that I'm not deepfake, I'm actually here. This is one of the reasons. The real reason is the microphone is here. So thank you very much. I've been listening to everyone talk about different subjects. There are a few questions here. So when you see a video on the internet, do you immediately believe it? Because most people will actually believe the video immediately and assume it is true. Actually, in EuroDIG, there were some sessions talking about fake news, about detecting all of these kind of problems. The issue is that people will believe it because they have no reason not to believe. By default, humans have a tendency to just believe things. What happens is that if you consider social networks like Facebook, Twitter, or whatever it's called these days, and anything else, people will just believe things because they are just there. Facebook a few years ago created something called the fact checkers, or something similar to that name, and this is actually a very good idea. So you have some party which is you should trust, that actually validates this. I can tell you that in my country, the two ones that were chosen are the media that's the biggest source of fake news that we have. So clearly that didn't work because most of the answers were wrong. So my suggestion here is that we might need to do fact checking on AI videos and make sure that they are true, if they are created by AI or not, but the problem spans much before that. So the reality is, what we need is critical thinking. We need to make sure that people are aware of things. We need to make sure that kids from a very early age, when they are 2-3 years old, they are going to ask the questions that my niece kept asking, which is, I talk to her and say, oh, something's like this. Oh, that seems very strange. Let me ask someone, let me ask my parents to see if this is true or not. And this is the critical thinking that I kind of encourage as well, because that was actually important. So think about this. If you have fake news, if you have these kind of things, have people to double check them, okay? By the way, best conspiracy theory is not that the earth is flat, is that the sun is flat. Try to prove that one. That one is much better.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to be going to the closing remarks, and I'm going to ask you to be very brief. So I'm going to ask each speaker to give one tweet or X now, like headline that you want the people in the room to keep with. And we're going to begin with Mary.
Yes, thank you so much. This has been very interesting. I learned a few things from the audience and from fellow speakers. Thank you so much for having me. I think my last words would be just reinforcing what we were saying, that there is need for more cooperation, a need to exchange the thoughts and ideas that we have, and to invest more in not only technology, but also in social skills, human connection, and most importantly, digital literacy, which is a theme that is here to stay. And to +1 to Andre's point, definitely asking, I think the default should not be, I don't want to say the default should be not trusting, but definitely trust but verify should be the motto for everyone. And this goes for both online and offline information, because fake news is not that new. Internet didn't invent fake news. It has been there for a long time. It's just the spread and reach has changed, and this will be, or already is, a big issue with AI generated manipulated content. So I really look forward to reading the youth messages, and definitely if you have any ideas, please feel free to reach out. We'll be happy to discuss this further and also cooperate later. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary. Emily?
Yes, I would like again to highlight and support the point that Everton brought up, that we need to have a body that will include media, policymakers, tech companies, young people. This diverse body we can have an open conversation all the time. Because, for example, we came to EuroDIG, and I myself from Armenia, and I met also some Armenians from the IGF in Armenia, and now we are thinking for some ways how we can collaborate. And this kind of conferences and events help people to meet each other, connect, and actually come up with something good, because we can build our future together, no matter which generation it is. And I don't know, it's just important to continue having real life talks and continue trying to decrease this gap between our generations, and include people and multi-stakeholders from different places in order to come up with the best solutions and fight the issues that we're facing, because they are becoming serious and we need to be able to face it together. And yes, thank you.
Thank you, Emily. So, Everton?
Oh, great segue. Just to add to the last point is that don't let others build your truth, the truth of your group. So if you have an issue to tackle, organize yourself. It's not, finding funding is hard for basically everyone, but don't let others tell the truth of your group. So if you're feeling targeted by this kind of bad information or with misinformation, organize yourself, organize your group, make yourself heard. And as I said before, so truth starts with fostering a robust information environment, and that requires you, all of you there, building the reality that we want in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Everton. Thomas?
Thank you. Maybe to sum it up, I think when it comes to the realm of misinformation and disinformation, real empowerment comes from being able to take those difficult discussions and not being afraid to being critical, even if it's to your friends or family or someone who might be in like a higher position than you. Yeah, maybe just end it on that.
Thank you. I want to finish thanking the speakers, thanking the youth track, all the volunteers, the rapporteurs, and everyone involved in creating this session. And of course, you, the public, that has been wonderful. And with this, I think we can wrap it up. So thank everyone.